Today I'm going to address two questions. The first is really important to us at NASA. Why does NASA need humanoid robots? The second question is one that this community pursues and has pursued for decades. It's really the holy grail in the special effects community. And having just seen T3, I'm thinking that I'm amazed, really. There's not much left there for us to try and identify. You've left so few clues that we're down to just very subtle things, the social interactions that Cynthia's exploring, and some very fine dexterous interactions that I'm going to talk to you today about. Fortunately, Cynthia and I are getting to collaborate where we're going to be bringing both of these classes of interactions together and building machines that can work with people and do manual tasks allows us to answer that first question. So where there are many answers to each of these questions, they have one in common, and that is that dexterous interactions can make machines useful and might give you some clues as to how to refine that last percentile in the special effects in the movie community. Let me move on to the first question first. Why does NASA need humanoid robots? We ask our astronauts to risk it all, and we don't ask these questions lightly. We must understand the risks they take, and we have to find ways, and we're constantly pursuing ways to reduce these dangers. Having said that, the astronaut corps, well, they're my heroes. They will line up down the street in front of the Johnson Space Center to fly on those rockets, but we owe it to them to pursue safe space flight, and we feel technology can help. We can build safer systems, and part of that is mixing in robots into the teams. In many tasks, we don't have to have the humans go out and risk it just to go chip some ice off of a rocket nozzle. How can we mix humans and robots into a spacewalking team to get the most out of both of them? Spacewalking, or as we call it, EVA, extravehicular activity, is a really dangerous thing. But it's the common denominator in almost all our space flights. NASA has a long list of contingencies, what if, and then yet more what ifs. And at the bottom of those what if trees are always put a suit on and go out and fix it. It's the common denominator in almost all our space flight contingency plans. And today we're already mixing robots into that solution set. We've got large cranes that have become incredibly effective as parts of our EVA teams, and we're looking at new forms of robots that can help. I like to have form follow function, and so I want to understand what the roles are that these machines need to play. And looking at that, then we can come back to the question of what form should they take. The cranes have been very effective. They were originally designed to deploy satellites out of a shuttle, but we learned very quickly that they were the place to stand if you needed to move around on the outside of a spacecraft. When the human steps onto the hand of this 50-foot giant robot arm, it's an incredible act of faith, and yet it's the only way to get around if you've got an opportunity to ride on the arm. There are a lot of other roles, setting up and cleaning up before and after a spacewalk, serving as the astronaut's apprentice during the spacewalk, and then there are emergency situations. It takes a long time to put a spacesuit on. In fact, it takes hours to get into a spacesuit and pre-breathe and to go outside of a spacecraft. We envision roles for robots that live outside the spacecraft 24/7. In an emergency, they're ready to go. So we started with a design challenge. Fit inside the same EVA volume that the astronauts have. If our robots grow too large, they won't even fit through the airlock. Fit through all the EVA access corridors that have been designed around our spacecraft, around the space station, for example. And then while you're at it, go ahead and make it so they can use all the same tools that the astronauts used. Make no special accommodations. Don't require that special interfaces be put on objects that the robot can interface to and grasp. Tethers, blankets, hooks, clasps, all kinds of things that are just easy for humans to work with are very challenging for machines. Don't require a separate set of tools. Share the same tools with the crew. If you can do these things, then you're providing a true EVA backup. The machine that we've built to address this challenge is a machine we call Robonaut, sponsored by both NASA and DARPA. I'm going to show a video here that has audio, and it explains the system and what our intent was and how we've gone about meeting this challenge.
In classic science fiction, authors and artists dreamed of an age where humans would work side by side with robots. Mechanical helpers that were so advanced they resembled their human creators. Is that age so far away? At the NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, engineers have taken the next step in robotics. This is Robonaut, and it's not only changing the way people think about robots, it's making yesterday's science fiction a reality. Robonaut is a teleoperated robot, meaning that a human operator can control its movements from a distance. The teleoperator wears a head-mounted display to both control the head of the robot and to see what the robot sees. The binocular video on the helmet's displays give a sense of depth and worksite immersion. A position-sensitive glove controls the movements of the intricate Robonaut arm and hand, which replicates the capabilities of a human arm and hand. The human aspect of the robot hand gives the Robonaut great potential to be an assistant to astronauts working in space. The current hand has 12 individual controlled motions, or degrees of freedom, divided into 2 sections. The first 2 fingers and the thumb make up the dexterous work side. They have 3 degrees of freedom. They can open and close, as well as spread apart, essentially like human fingers. The remaining 2 fingers only open and close. They are used for grasping. The palm can cup to help grasp tools. With over 100 sensors in the arm, the manipulator has a fine motion capability that equals its great strength. The arm's 1-to-1 strength-to-weight ratio is unequaled in the commercial manipulator world, allowing for the portable and mobile applications that Robonaut faces. The endoskeleton is designed with custom space lubricants and materials to meet the extremes of the space environment, and is covered with a novel skin that will protect the arm and help make it safe for its role as a human assistant. The 2 arms can work together to perform more complex tasks, to hold large objects using both hands, or to stabilize and work on objects simultaneously. Robonaut's upper body is mounted on a 3-degree of freedom waist, allowing full orientation of roll, yaw, and pitch motions. This articulation of the torso allows the robot to extend its reach and position its dexterous pair of arms for efficient worksite operations. With a range of motions greater than that of even a human gymnast, this waist can rotate fully around, repositioning the arms for work and the head for inspection. The head, still in development, houses stereo vision cameras that are pointed by an articulated neck. As the operator moves his head, Robonaut's eyes are pointed to mimic the human's gaze with the binocular video on the helmet's displays that give a sense of depth and VR immersion. The head contains an additional pair of cameras with auxiliary view angles and LEDs that can be used to illuminate the worksite in low lighting conditions. Robonaut's design could be ideal for helping astronauts because, for the first time, humans and robots can share the same spacewalking tools. From this power drill, used to represent the space torque wrench typically used to loosen or tighten bolts on space hardware, to tethers designed for human hands, which are used by astronauts to connect themselves to a spacecraft, and Velcro strips used to attach thermal blankets and insulation covers. Construction is underway on the International Space Station, the largest space structure ever built. The Space Shuttle robot arm has been invaluable in helping astronauts to move the giant pieces of the station together and maneuver spacewalkers to their work sites. The space station will have its own robotic system designed to help build and maintain the giant structure. Robonaut has the potential to expand the role of robots as helpers during routine maintenance tasks on the space station. The robot could be used to set up a work site for the astronauts, installing foot restraints, for example, saving valuable time before the complex spacewalk actually begins. As the astronaut works on the station, the Robonaut could act as an assistant, much the same way a nurse works with a doctor. Or, if desired, the robot could perform some of the maintenance tasks on its own by being teleoperated by an IVA astronaut. When the spacewalk is complete, Robonaut could stow away the same equipment it set up earlier, freeing the EVA astronaut to perform more important duties. Robonaut has applications not only in the maintenance of spacecraft, but also in the exploration of other worlds. The Robonaut torso could possibly be combined with a rover, allowing travel across the rough terrain of other planets. Imagine the ability for a geologist to survey Mars through the eyes of the robot, then use its hands to scoop up soil, or even pick up a rock, inspect it, and add it to a collection for return to Earth. In the future, the same Robonaut technology that helps explore space could also have some very down-to-earth applications. Robonaut's sophisticated hands can work with tweezers, pipettes, and a number of other common handheld tools that could be used for a host of telescience applications. Whether the Robonaut works on its own or just lends a helping hand, the uses of the Robonaut are limited only by the imagination of its user. No longer reserved for the pages of science fiction, Robonaut represents technology that is working today, with far-reaching applications in the future, both in space and here on Earth.
See if I can move on here. To make sure that we have plenty of time for the rest of the speakers, I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. Here's a brief history of the Robonaut developments, culminating in birth of a second one. I'll get to that in a minute. Robonaut A that you saw in the movie has 47 degrees of freedom, 2 upper extremities with 19 degrees of freedom each, an articulated neck and waist, a number of control modes going beyond telepresence into autonomy and even learning. Here you see it sporting its second-generation gloves. Third-generation gloves just went on about 3 weeks ago. The robot now has a sensor count well over 200, tactile sensors in all those skin panels, gloves, arms, sleeves, torso. Robonaut B completed this winter, follows in Robonaut A's footsteps. Well, Robonaut A didn't have feet, but B does, but it only's got one of them. In space, 2 feet don't really make sense. The function of climbing on the outside of a spacecraft needs some special form, and we built a stabilizing leg that allows the robot to climb hand over fist, plug its foot in, and stabilize itself for zero-G operations. Along the way, we made a few other improvements too. All the racks of computers that were behind A are gone. They're all now embedded in that robot. A number of advances in the head as well. Family portrait. The anatomy for zero-G is unusual. You notice on B's back a strange-looking device. That's actually the interface. That's a special accommodation that the large space crane needs before it can pick something up. That little device that you see on its back, that kind of blue thing, that's the hand of the 50-foot crane. That hand alone weighs more than Robonaut. I'm going to go through a couple of the key subsystems here. The hand is just a mechanical marvel. 5 fingers, 12 degrees of freedom, fully packaged with extrinsic actuation in the forearm, embedded avionics, a number of control modalities, and a wide range of sensors. The arm, 1-to-1 strength-to-weight ratio, which is very unusual in the scale manipulator. For that matter, there aren't many commercially available scales, manipulators in this scale. Huge sensor count and growing. The waist is packaged to be smaller than the human waist. That's a fake human pelvis. No humans were killed for this work. Okay. Got it. The head has laser-guided infrared thermometer in its nose and a number of other sensors across the skull. Shell, and I'm going to give a plug here to the Discover Channel. They've been very good to us. We can be found in a number of their programs, and having done that, I can now show some animation that they provided to me. They wouldn't tell me who they contracted with to have this made. If you're in the room, please see me. So the next question, how do we identify the so-called fake robots in the movies? Well, it's getting harder and harder. Here are a couple categories. We've got the human, the one who just claims that they're a robot, the other one who puts on some ridiculous costume. The second category are the mechanisms and the animations that you know so well and that are continuing to improve. I had to go back really far to make sure I didn't hurt anybody's feelings here. Tobor the Great. Very interactive. You see lots of dexterous interactions there. Well, that's because there's a guy in there. Believe it or not, there's a guy in there. This was just a mechanism. This was electro. You're not going to see it do too much. Yeah, that's about all it's going to do. Things have gotten a lot better. We're down to just some very fine points of interaction. Cynthia's and Stan's work in Leonardo is a standout there. For dexterous interactions, well, you're not going to see too many robots handling things in the movies. I guess if I had a blowtorch on my hand, I wouldn't need to handle too many things, but you're not going to see too many robots picking objects up. They often already have objects in their hands. So this is something that, this is an area where we can still make some improvements. You won't see too many robots making contacts with their limbs because contacts are very complicated. Oops, wrong direction. Here's a contact. My boss said, "Rob, I just want the robot to be able to reach out and pick up a coat just like I do." And I said, well, let me give it a shot. This is flat out the fastest our teleoperators can do it and not drop or crush that Coke can. The teleoperator had about 2 or 3 minutes to play around with it, so I didn't give him too much time to train. But this kind of interaction is very complicated. That can is essentially empty, so if you brush it just wrong, it'll slide and fall over. Very fine levels of force. Here are two Robonauts working together, handling objects in common, being able to reach in and out of tight areas and pull objects out without dropping them. In this kind of work, a millimeter is the difference between picking something up and dropping it. And friction is everything. Friction's really hard to model. Here's handling soft goods like tethers and ropes, hooks. These are some of the mountain climbing carabiners that astronauts use as their lifelines. Here's work that was done Monday. Using some new autonomy and some learning algorithms developed at Vanderbilt and UMass, MIT, and USC. This robot was taught by a teleoperator who stepped inside it and taught it how to respond and move in response to its human teammate standing over there. It's able to hear voice commands, it's able to feel forces, and it's able to see arm gestures. And based on the way the teleoperator taught it, it behaves in an assistive way. To conclude, going after these dexterous interactions will improve the movies, but it will also improve our work at NASA. because dexterously interacting with objects is where we tend to solve problems. We're working on this with a number of universities supported by the NASA IS program and the DARPA MARS 2020 program. I'm going to end with one last video that shows where I think things are going. Should turn down the audio. I think it's mostly just hiss. Did you turn down the audio? Here we have both Robonauts working with Dr. Nancy Curry. Now, Nancy is a 4-time astronaut. She specializes in teleoperating those giant robot arms on the shuttle. In this case, she's wearing the very latest spacesuit. The suit that you'll see on TV weighs 285 pounds with its life support system. I think Nancy might weigh about 85 pounds. The suit she's wearing weighs 85 pounds, a 3-fold reduction in mass. So she can actually work in 1G. With the previous suits, we had to hang them on a hook for them to be able to move around. In this experiment, we were looking at ways to mix the robots into an EVA team, assembling a space truss. A truss just like this was assembled out of the payload bay of the space shuttle about 6 years ago, but it was done by 2 astronauts. Our idea is that instead of the 2 astronauts backing each other up, they'll probably still both go out on an EVA, but they will split up. Instead of one being the leader and one being the follower, they'll each be the leader. They'll form up their own team of robots, and they'll lead that team in parallel with their other astronaut, getting twice as much work done. We're not going to replace astronauts. What we're going to do is we're going to mix robots in to intelligently manage the risks and to have machines there that could go out in an emergency and bring our crew home safe. Thank you.